Hey guys, my name's Dave Rabier with Great Lakes Extreme Outdoors. A lot of people reach out to us and try to get advice from us for how we fish, where we fish, how fast we go, what kind of baits we use, and what are the techniques, and if we have any tips that we could give them to make them more successful out on Lake St Clair fishing walleye. I'll tell you today, one of my favorite baits that I ever use, and I use it all the time, you can use it all year, but I like to use it in cold water, particularly October, November, December, when the temperature of the water is less than 50 degrees, but you can also burn them in the summertime at as fast as 2.5 miles an hour. My favorite bait that we like to use all the time in those conditions is the Bandit, and this Bandit is called Golden Boy. It's from JT Custom Tackle, and I think overall this has been one of the best baits that I have ever used on Lake St Clair. By far, this color makes it happen every single time. And with that being said, a lot of people are asking us, hey, how do we run those Bandits? How fast do we run them? Well, I'll tell you a little bit about how I like to run mine, and you can dial in yours and do it however you like. But this is the way that I've always done it. What I like to do is run rod trees on my boat, whether it be my 20-foot Starcraft or my 30-foot Proline. All of them have a track system, and on that track system we have a rod tree, and I like to run a 3 or 4 rod spread. Depending on how many people are on the boat, if there's just me and Tom out there fishing, we're going to run 3 rods each side, and each rod is going to have 1 bait on it. And if we're running Bandits, this is kind of how my spread goes. I'm going to send every single Bandit out on an offshore planer board so I can get it out away from the boat, and I normally will send out my first rod, which would be my outside rod, and I'm going to send that back from the rod. I'm going to clip on my crankbait. I'm going to run that back between 15 and 25 feet, but normally I'm going to run that outside one about 25 feet deep. Then I'm going to snap on my offshore planer board. I'm going to let it out to a total length of 135. So you take your 25 back and send it out to a total length of 135. You don't have to add 25 to that. People get confused, and then you end up sending it out so far you can barely even see it. So then my second one, I'm going to try a different Bandit. I'm going to run a different depth. My outside planer board and lure is going to run higher in the water column than all the rest. My middle board will be the next deepest, and my inside will be the next deepest after that. So I'm going to clip on my second lure. Usually I'm going to try colors like pink and purple and chartreuse. I'm going to send that out there. Then I'm going to put a chrome on my middle one, and I'm going to send that one off my rod, let's say 35 feet back. And then I'm going to snap on my planer board, and I'm going to send that out all the way to a total length of 115 to 120 feet until it snaps in place and it's in the middle between my outside board and the boat, and it's going to run, and I want to make it look like geese when they're flying in a V formation. So then I'm going to run my third rod with a different color Bandit to try to kind of figure out what the fish want that day. And generally I'm going to run that 45 to 55 back depending on the height of the weeds and the depth of the water. Normally I want to get my baits about 8 foot, 10 foot, and 12 feet down. Lake St Clair is not very deep, so if you're out there running 12 feet down, most of the time you're going to be in 19 feet of water, maybe 18 feet of water, and that's going to kind of get you in the clutch, in the crunch time, in the fish biting zone. You know what I'm saying? So when the fish sit on the bottom, they usually come up to feed. If those baits are above their head, then those fish are going to go for them. Their eyes are on top of their head. They don't feed down. Walleyes love to feed up, and this is the way to success if you're walleye fishing with Bandits on Lake St Clair. And people always ask me, Dave, how fast do I go? Well, that's dependent on the water temperature and the conditions, but normally if you're running in water that is lower than 50 degrees, let's say you're in the fall and it's 35 to 40 degrees, or maybe even 45 to 50 degrees, the slower the better. The fish are kind of lethargic at that time. They don't want to go after these hot running baits at 2.5 miles an hour in most cases, and you're going to have a lot more luck in temperatures under 50 degrees running your lures at about 1 to 1.3 miles an hour. That's going to get it done. Bandits are great because they get a lot of action on them, even at slow speeds, and they have a really loud, annoying rattle, and that rattle just ticks off those walleyes, and they come up and they snatch it. It's a reaction bite. Sometimes they snatch it because they just don't like the way the lure looks, but I know that rattle gives you a lot of success. Now, if the water temperature is above 50 degrees or even 55 degrees, you can start playing with your speed a little bit, but normally I never really go faster than 1.5 miles an hour until we get into the summertime when the water temperatures are like 75 degrees, and then you can really burn them and, you know, go 2.5 miles an hour, but I never go that fast. I think the highest I really ever try to go is 1.8, maybe 1.9 miles an hour. I like to rip and run just like anybody else, but I feel like if you're going too fast, especially in the weeds, Those walleyes are down there in the weeds, are protecting their eyes from the sunlight, and they don't want to come running out of there to race after a bait. But you can be in shallow water, and if you run those baits right over the top of the weeds, you'll be surprised how many big walleyes come out and snatch that bandit and eat it down. Hopefully this video was helpful and kind of gives you an idea how we run bandits, how you should probably try to run bandits, and then you can kind of tweak it from there, because nobody really knows everything about fishing. We're all out there experimenting. Even the pros are out there putting a lot of time in, and nothing will really exchange knowledge that you get from videos compared to your time on the water. It's really important for you to get out there, put your time in on the water, and get it done. Kind of dial in, figure out what the fish are, and don't get too fond of going back to the same spots over and over, because fish move all the time. So never fish on memories, only fish on what you see. Learn how to use your electronics, learn how to use your side scan. Not everybody's going to have Panoptics or Active Target or whatever, and you don't actually need it. Old people, the old timers, are out there doing this stuff without any of that. You just kind of figure out the area that they're in, you run over them, you cover a lot of ground, you start figuring out kind of where they're at, establish a pattern with the bandits, what colors they like, what speed they like, run them at various depths till you figure out how deep they want it. And once you do, you can dial it in, get them all set on similar colors, run them at similar depths, and next thing you know, you got fish on, you're doubling and tripling up, and that's the way to have a really good day on the water on Lake St. Clair.